What's up, everybody? Coming to you live from the Oval Office, i.e. Canyon Gate Country Club in Las Vegas, Nevada. The internet went out at our office, so I hopped in my car and ran up here to come and hop on with my guy, Chris Suarez. Super excited to be here. Excited for my background. I'm now the President of the United States of America. I'm going to fix everything. So let me introduce Chris before we get into it. So Chris, co-founder of Place. For those of you who don't know, Place is a full service technology platform, partners with top agents and teams, expanding their profitability, value propositions to the customers, while maintaining a local brand, staying a little bit unique there. You don't have to leave your brokerage. Place is partnered with leading real estate teams, 200 locations across the United States and Canada, including the Joe Taylor Group. We're proud Place partners. We love it. Chris is passionate about coaching and speaking, masterminding, consulting. He has the experience growth coaching. So it's not uncommon to see Chris around the globe coaching and training and mentoring. Prior to Place, Chris founded and served as the CEO of Experience, Keller Williams' #3 expansion organization. He's been recognized by Inman, Rise Media, EY Entrepreneur of the Year, 2023 Mountain West Award winner, along with Ben Kinney in Place, maintains the presence, his presence on Real Trends, the thousand. Chris's personal mission is build experiential lives through real estate. Chris lives his mission through travel and creating life experiences with his wife and 2 daughters. So Chris, your bio is amazing, man. But Taylor and I have gotten to know you a little bit as we were exploring Place. I think there's a million different ways we can go with this, but where I'd love to start is just, how did Place become a thing? Like, what was the recognition that you and Ben had in its infancy to say, like, you know what, man, we can do something here to help people. I think Place is very misunderstood, which, to be honest, the longer I'm in business, I think being misunderstood is actually a good thing, because it gives you the ability to create. But talk a little bit about Place and how it came to be and why it exists.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. And appreciate being on with you today. I think the prop tech or property technology companies are sometimes villainized, sometimes misunderstood. I think all prop tech companies should have one goal, and that goal should be to make the process of whatever that technology is focused on smoother and easier for the honestly consumer at the end of the day. That's what technology has done. All technology that's been disruptive has made it easier for a consumer to get what they want. People want things easier. They want things more consistent. They want things, right? They just want things faster. Honestly, if I think about kind of where it came from, it probably came from Ben and I, right, as business partners, really focus on what we can learn from other industries. I've always gotten outside of the real estate industry to understand what's going on in the world. And I think one of the earlier conversations that I came across, and this is sort of applicable for all of us, regardless of business, was a conversation that Jeff Bezos had with his sort of an all company or all hands meeting. And, he always, in his share letters, which I know you've read and studied, it's always said, hey, like, it's always day one at Amazon. It's always day one at Amazon. It's always day one at Amazon. And eventually, he became known as the guy that seemed to know where things was going. And so at one of those all hands meetings, they said, gosh, Jeff, what's going to change in the next 10 years? And Jeff Bezos' response to that was, that's an interesting question. It's a common one. Like, what's going to change? How do I build a company that's going to be ahead of that change? But Jeff said, I almost never get the question, what's not going to change in the next 10 years? And he said, and I said, I would submit to you that the second question is more important, because you could build a business strategy around what's not going to change. So, at Amazon, he said, there's a few things that'll never change. No one's going to say, hey, Jeff, I love Amazon, but I just wish prices were a little higher. That's never going to happen. So he optimized for low prices. He said, someone's never going to say, hey, Jeff, I love Amazon, but I wish you just deliver things a little bit slower. Like, things are way too fast around here. It's never going to happen. So he optimized for speed. And no one's ever going to say, hey, Jeff, like I love Amazon, but like there's just too many choices. Just give me one in each category. It's never going to happen. People love choice. And so he optimized for speed, price, and choice. And he built literally $1 trillion company. And so for us, we take a step back and say, hey, what is never going to change in our industry? And what's never going to change is a buyer and a seller wanting to buy easier and sell easier, right? The process has been wildly difficult for the entire history of the transferring of real estate. Now, real estate agents have come in and said, hey, I think we can make this easier. And I think we do, right? To some degree we do, like obviously. But then property technology companies came in and said, well, oh, I can make this easier, and I can make that easier, and I can make this easier. And so these brilliant entrepreneurs came into the industry and said, I have this solution so that you can buy before you sell. Here it is. I have this solution where you can find a home easier. Here it is. I have this solution that makes financing easier. Here it is. I have this solution that actually makes your home prettier and more attractive before you have to pay to make it prettier and more attractive. Here it is. And so all these companies came and started throwing out these options. And the true person in the center of all of that, the consumer and their agent, actually only got more confused and it got more complicated. So Place was this business that didn't come into the industry to solve a problem. Like I've been in the industry for 25 years, solving my darn problems. As you mentioned, like it started by me building a real estate business that turned into a team that began to expand. Like I had all the problems. And I honestly, I woke up every day saying, hey, what is the complex problem that I could solve in a simple way? Because I know that the consumer will pay for simple, right? They will always pay for simple. So let's simplify that process. Now, what I realized, and this is a true core belief, and if this was not my belief, Place wouldn't exist. My belief is that the consumer will always engage with a highly qualified consultant when it comes to getting advice about their largest asset, which is real estate. And that's you, that's me, that's the real estate consultant. So what we realize is the best way to make things simpler for the consumer is to make it simpler for the real estate consultant and make sure the real estate consultant had everything all in one place for the home, so that customer could be your customer for life, whether they're buying or selling or managing that asset or renting that asset or financing that asset or insuring that asset or maintaining that asset. And I think that opens up a wildly different total addressable market where we're fighting over and we get stressed out when someone says, hey, there's this few $billion industry called real estate commission, like let's go after that. I say there's a $3 trillion industry in home services, which makes up 17 or 18% of this entire country's GDP. The real estate industry should be focused on that. So it's kind of a broad answer to your question.
No, it's great.
Philosophically, it comes from what's not going to change. Let's build around what's not going to change. And at the end of the day, it's the consumer that's going to dictate what you and I have to do, or what you and I have to build, or what you and I have to deliver. And so that's what Place does in a broad stroke way.
So talk about this, because I'm somewhat obsessed with this principle of real estate technology can only go down one of two paths, in my opinion, when it comes to real estate practitioners. It either is intended to replace or it's intended to enhance the job, role, and life of the real estate professional. So, and you see different technology providers trying one or the other. They're either like, we believe that the real estate professional is essential in the transaction, therefore we're going to build to simplify and enhance their lives to be more effective, or we believe that the real estate professional is overpaid and antiquated and unnecessary. And so we then believe that our job is to replace them. Place would obviously place himself in that first bucket of saying, we believe that the real estate professional is essential, and we are then going to build to enhance and simplify their lives to make them more efficient and more profitable and more effective. Am I right?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I don't probably leave a conversation talking about place or the industry without stating that I believe technology as an industry should be focused on improving the consumer's experience on their path to the dream of homeownership. So we're a mission-based organization. We believe in the mission that we should all be homeowners in this country because it is the true path of wealth. Like that is statistically a fact, right? The average renter in America has a net worth of $6,300. The average homeowner in America has a 40x on that, and it's on average $225,000 net worth. Like if we can impact that, then we should. And so then any product or any service or any company that I'm going to be involved with or get behind or spend or invest my days building is going to be asking the question, am I improving the consumer's experience? Now, you are right that I believe that the consumer's experience will always be better in this industry, in any asset like that, being handled by a true consultant and professional. However, it needs to be a more skilled professional. It needs to be a more equipped
Right.
professional. It needs to be a more consultative professional. And so that is sort of how we're addressing that problem. It is really finding the people in this industry that don't want to be real estate agents necessarily, but they want to be true business owners and
Mm.
understand that they want to be mission based and attack this problem of home ownership. And they're going to do it through a different angle or with a different lens on the problem. And yes, it doesn't mean we're not real estate agents because we are, but I just look at the profession and I look at the use of the world wildly different than even our own industry has looked at us.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about this for a second. When Taylor and I went to Place, and I'm curious to hear what your answer is. This stock answer about places, like, what? You gave up 50% of your profit? Like, that's just so standard. So talk a little bit about the economics, and I know it's a complicated question to answer, but I think it's important for people to understand. Taylor and I didn't just go like, "Man, it'd be really cool to be in business with Chris and Ben, so, like, here's half of our company, and we're gonna make half as much money." It certainly doesn't work that way, but I think that's an easy way for critics or for people who are building competitive companies to what Place's offering is. It's just a simple way to say like, oh yeah, no, you have to give up half of your income. That's not how it
Yeah.
works. So talk a little bit about the economics and like why somebody would choose to partner with you and Ben and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think that no one would choose to partner with us unless they value partnership. And I mean that. Like when people ask me, "Hey, Chris, what do you hope that place accomplishes?" Like big picture, end of life. You look back at there's all these pillars in our life that matter, right? Our relationships matter, our personal growth matters, our spirituality matters, our wealth building matters, right? Like our careers matter. Like what is going to matter in your career? My intention is that at the end of that moment that we changed how business is looked at in this country. I think our problem and the reason why those questions come up initially is that the U.S. and even our education system honors and rewards and sort of glorifies the solopreneur. Like
Mm.
and I just talked about one, right? We see Jeff, we see Mark, we see Bill, right? We see these entrepreneurs as the person when we don't recognize that actually true businesses are really built with incredible partnerships. Some of those partnerships were partnerships with other businesses, right? Or talent. I just believe in partnership. I believe that businesses grow in a more fulfilling way, but also a more profitable way with partnership. And I hope at the end of the day, business schools, which I think are going to get wildly disrupted as well, but business schools would be delivering white papers and education on what the power of partnership is. And that Place is actually looked at as this company for the first time ever in this country that built 100% on partnership. And that means
Yep.
every business that we build, grow, stand up is true partnership. If you don't believe in partnership, then you're not going to ever show up and say, well, I really like your tools, but this economic model seems strange. For me, it's a very natural thing. If I look at you and you look at me and I say, gosh, like what you do and the skills that you have and the energy that you want to put towards something is contributory to what I do and the skills that I have and what I want to build, then a partnership could exist. And what we partner on is the growth of that business. What we partner on is, hey, what if we did this together? What would that create locally in our marketplace for two groups of people? For the real estate agents in your area, like you are bringing a different value proposition to professionals in the industry than other people are bringing, and you're bringing a value proposition to consumers. We're partnering on that value proposition, and we say, hey, do we think we can build something together? Do we want to build something together? Awesome. Let's put everything that we have together and build something as 50-50 partners. That's how I look at it. But it's not unlike what I did with Ben. So
Right.
understand, when I come to you and have this partnership conversation, I understand that might be weird. I understand that might be different because most people don't. And in our industry, which is a pretty ego driven industry, like, well, I built this, I can do it. Like, I'm a New Yorker. Like, I get that. I was raised to
Yeah.
put my head down, not ask for help, and just go and work. And so it wasn't until 18 years in the industry that I thought, oh, yeah, I've built something pretty big, but what would it look like if I truly partnered and took everything that I did, and my partner took everything that he did, and we had a different mission and a different vision, and combined that. Like, Ben and I are wildly different human beings, and we come to the table thinking different ways. It's like this constant mental model, like, sort of conversation around, well, what if I invert that? And he'll say, well, what if we think about that differently? And that is what has created what we believe is an industry game changer. I would have done it on my own. I will
Yeah.
go out and say Ben wouldn't have done it on his own too, because I believe in my value to the partnership. So I'm not asking any other business owner to do something that I didn't do, but you have to truly believe that there is more benefit and value in a partnership. It may have been easier for you because you've benefited by a partnership in the past. It may be harder for those that have never had a partnership and have been trained by our society to think that partnership is weakness, or asking for help is weakness, or that like it is a step down from the ego that we've already built. I think that's why the industry struggles. But I also think that the go-to-market strategy for other people that sort of say, hey, this seems like a good business model, like we should do something similar. And maybe my go-to-market strategy would be like, why would you do that? It actually feeds the ego that already exists in the industry. So I will tell you, we just have a different type of partner on the Place platform than other organizations and companies. And it's why one of our core values is humility, because if it wasn't, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have any
Yeah.
partners if there wasn't some humility in that. But me too. Like, I recognize that I could do something different and better and more meaningful for the industry with other people too. So I don't own anything.
Well,
I'm partnered.
yeah, no, and I think it's such an important thing for people to understand. Like Taylor and I have been partners now almost 20 years. So we're at coming up on 19. And I would say that based on our family histories, our socioeconomics of our city, national averages and world averages, we are, without sounding ridiculous, like wildly successful. And I think that you would look at us and be like, man, if Joe has done what he's done with a partner, imagine what he would do without. And same thing with Taylor. And I think both of us would uniformly go like, no, 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 it's actually the exact opposite. Like what we've been able to accomplish together is because of our partnership. And like this is such a fun conversation for us to have with real estate agents looking to join our team, because it's always a conversation around compensation to say, like, yeah, no, I understand that the 100% myth is so attractive, like to keep 100% of your commissions. And I'm always like, do you know who's one of the most successful people I know, financially speaking? Taylor Prince. Do you know how much Taylor keeps at most of a transaction? Like, best case scenario, his mom buys a house and we split it 50-50. I'm like, there's so, but there is, and maybe what's going on with the national attack on commissions, with the lack of transactions, with interest rates being as high as they are. If you rewind 2 years ago, I could just go to the gym, and while I'm stretching at CrossFit, the guy next to me is going to be like, "Hey, man, we're thinking of buying a house. We need to sell ours. It doubled in value." Like it was monopoly and funny money, and maybe the economy we're moving into is going to have people go like, "There's got to be a better way." So let me ask you this: outside of place, just from a joining a team, getting a partner, like you have the experience to be able to diagnose this a little bit. But from a triage situation, like why is there so much aversion to partnering, to joining a team, to surrounding yourself in a world where yeah, you may not keep 100% of every dollar that comes in, but you might keep 50% of 5 times as many dollars, which still creates, 2.5 times the income you would have made. And it's like, why is it so hard to get people to understand those economics?
Yeah. Because the majority of people in this industry found themselves as real estate agents semi by accident. They didn't go to school to be business owners. They didn't go to school to be an entrepreneur. Like it was almost accidental. And so we have 100% been exposed to the industry around these conversations of this is what you do and here's your commission, and we have commission conversations or GCI conversations instead of day one saying, okay, well, if you're going to build a business, whatever product you happen to sell or whatever product you're delivering, whatever service you're delivering, you're going to look at what your total revenue is. And then you're going to understand what your cost of sale is. And then you're going to understand your expenses. And this industry delivers on average, like in a great way, a profit margin of somewhere between 30 to 40%. And if we understood as business owners that the industry should deliver a profit margin of 30 to 40% if you run the business the right way, we would never have this conversation of, I don't know if I wouldn't join a team because I don't want to give up X% of my commission, whatever X is. They would literally say, okay, on your platform or in your group or as part of your business, what should I expect my profit margin to be? And if I say, well, your profit margin could be 20%, then I would then say, well, in the industry, I feel like my talent should be able to get a profit margin of 30 or 40%. And I would have to look you in the eyes and say, yeah, you're probably right if you want to run a business. So for me, it's never been about commission. By the way, if it was less about commission, we may not be hearing so much noise and issues in lawsuits around commission, because all we would say is, what does top line revenue in this business bring in? How do we grow or adjust to pullbacks in top line revenue? What do we do around cost of sale? What are our expenses? And then what is the profit? So I look at a team and say, at the end of the day, someone that is partnered with you on your team, at the end of the day, what they've chosen is, okay, I can have the same profit margin as Joe, or I can have the same profit margin as Taylor. It's just that I actually choose this role. Like I love selling real estate. I love finding properties. I love engaging with the consumer. And I actually get to keep 35, 40, 45% of my profit or gross revenue. Joe and Taylor say, gosh, I actually now love hiring people and training people and leading people and finding people and systematizing people and diving into technology and finding the right partnerships. I love the business side of it mostly and only. And your goal, interestingly enough, is also to get to 30, 35, 40% profit. Like we are equal partners at the end of the day on a real estate team, but our industry has always talked about commission. Our industry has always talked about splits, whether it be with a brokerage or whether it be on a team, instead of recognizing that any industry or business that we decide to raise our hand and say, I'm going to go into it. If I was going to go into coffee, I go through my training at Starbucks, and Starbucks says, hey, our goal for you is to turn a profit margin of about 4.5 to 5% of total revenue at this location. And you say, okay, how many coffees do I need to sell in order to get my 4% to be what I want my take home to be or my income to be? It's no different. Books, coffee, real estate, insurance, right? T-shirts, like it's a profit margin conversation. And I think that's why we grow, because not only are we having that conversation with our partners, we're having them with all the agents on those partner teams. And we're only attracting people that want to be business owners anyway. And business owners think about top line revenue, gross profit, cost of sale, expense, net profit, and then investing that net profit. So I think that's the conversation that needs to happen within the industry, but we're just not having it.
Yeah. So talk about this a little bit because this is a super fun topic. What I love to say to people is the perception that they have. Like, let's say somebody joins a team, and two things I talk about is, are you able to obsess over the dollar sign more than you are over um, the percentage symbol? And then the other one I love to ask is, what percentage, like if you close a $10,000 transaction, Chris, and you and I are on a 50-50 split, I'm the team leader and you're a team member, your check is going to be pretty dang close to $5,000. So if I receive a $5,000 check, how much of that $5,000 do you believe goes to supporting, my family and paying my bills personally? And they're always shocked when I'm like, just so you know, when a $5,000 check comes back to us as a leadership group, it really quickly turns into about $2,100. And they're just like shocked to hear that. And so I think you also hit on something really important, which is I still have a deep seated belief that so many of the people that got into this industry did so because they were sitting at a closing table with their spouse, having purchased a house next to an agent that they spent 3 or 4 hours with. They look at the HUD one and they say, like Billy made $13,000. He was with us for like an hour and a half. Billy walks out of the room and husband turns to wife or vice versa. Spouse turns to spouse and says, sweetheart, can you imagine all of the amazing vacations we could take if you spent an hour and a half with people and got $13,500? And then they go to real estate school and they end up in the industry and they're like, wow, it's not that easy. What are you seeing in 2023 heading into 2024 that gives you optimism? There's really nothing we could do to fix the world for people that don't want to work. But for people that want to put in the work, I think the future is very bright. What are you seeing?
Yeah. I mean, I think for people that want to work, they should research and find a industry that has equal opportunity, unequal reward, right? So we all have the same opportunity in any market that we're in to go out and find buyers or find sellers, engage with them, right? Provide service. And regardless of what we choose to get paid for that service, it's an unequal reward. Like if I have systematized it to do it better, if I hustle harder and do it more, like I have an unequal reward. So it's hard for me to look at any other industry and love it as much as ours. And it's not because of the size of the checks. That is not why I'm here. Like if I loved the book industry, by the way, if the book industry didn't get disrupted, I'd probably be in it. I love books. Like I love all of it. But it's not a you know, equal opportunity, unequal reward business at this point in time, right? And so I think for me, real estate is still one of the industries that anybody that wants to change their trajectory in life or change their level of income or change their personal growth plan, uh, it is a wildly fascinating industry to be part of. I do think that part of that is a decision on who we want to be when we grow up, or if we don't know, being part of a platform, even such as yours, that says, hey, no matter where you want to be in the industry, we have a path for you. If you want to be
Right.
me when you grow up, like we can support that, which is different than most organizations and teams that say, okay, like, no, you're joining this team and this is your role and this is what you're going to do. And if you want to do anything else, you're going to have to, like, they leave a great relationship or mentorship because they feel like they have to if they want to be you. Your platform says, hey, like we could support people that actually want to grow up and say one day, now I actually want to go out and do the hiring and leading other agents, and like that's fine too.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's unique about our industry. One, any sales is a phenomenal opportunity, typically financially. No different here, right? Interestingly enough, oftentimes if you've done any sort of sales management, sales managers are, if it's the wrong person, will only last a very short amount of time, because they're typically a sales manager because they sold with a product that they're now managing other people to sell. Then they wake up one day and realize that, okay, so I got a 6-figure salary, but all my salespeople are making a lot more than I am in managing. So they end up back in sales. Like, the reality is sales is probably the best opportunity in terms of now money, financial opportunity today during high income earning years, as anything that we could be in. And that's why I think being an agent, focusing on agent activities, doing specific activities that generate revenue, man, sign me up. Now, and by the way, I did that for 19 years before I really got focused on, okay, well, now I need to sort of iterate. I want to evolve into a different type of business owner. I want to move away from being, a salesperson in this industry and really be sort of a technologist, or really be sort of a CEO of a company, or really be sort of a leader of an organization or people, or really be sort of an architect of systems. I truly believe that as you ask those questions, Joe, the only one that I would add to is, depending on where they are, is like, who do you want to be when you grow up? Great. Now I know what path you want to take within this industry.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so what do you see in nationally? I mean, obviously the stuff with the NAR and stuff like that, I think all of us have more questions than answers, but what do you, in your opinion, where does this stuff go? Like, appeals going to be successful? Do you think that there's, are we heading into a world where, I've theorized that, listings are just going to rule the future, and the buyer agent business could turn into more of like a rental representation type of deal? Like, what are your thoughts on the future of real estate when it comes to all the things we're seeing coming out of the federal courts?
Yeah, I think that I've just made a habit of my life to only think about things I can control, to be
Yeah.
honest. And so when people ask me opinions about that, I said, well, here's what I know I can control. I may actually be less pessimistic about that, but that's largely because I've always believed that there was a true representative on the seller side and a true representative on the buyer side. I don't think that we have communicated that well, and herein lies our sort of fork in the road that allows someone outside of our industry to potentially determine how our industry is run. That's on us, because interestingly enough, everything that those court cases or people are saying should be doing, we should be doing, like, we should have been doing. And most of us, interestingly enough,
Already
we
did it.
just,
Yeah.
yet we weren't communicating properly.
Right.
Or industry itself has not optimized for the fact that, yes, a buyer actually has always been paying for buyer agency. They've paid for it in the home price. Naturally, right? They would have paid less for that home if a seller wasn't paying for the representation on both sides, potentially. But the buyers paid that fee. The sellers didn't pay that fee. So we just need to get the buyers to realize that, yes, like as I described to you, you were paying that fee, or maybe as I didn't describe to you, you were paying that fee. I think the big question is, will lending institutions adjust appraisals to realize that, we are appraising property at home value plus, right, some compensation.
Right. Right.
Will we be able to finance it in? If not, and buyers don't have that, well, then what is that conversation? I think our world looks very similar to sort of a 3 option for buyer agency. Either a seller is going to say, I 100% see the value of having every person that represent buyers showing my house and getting buyers through the
Which
door.
I think would be the majority. I think
And
majority of sellers would go like, hey, listen, I believe in supply and demand, and the best thing I can do is get as many people through the door as possible, and I'm happy to compensate the entire industry if somebody can bring me a buyer at the price I want.
yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. The second thing is, at that moment when I'm walking through what I do for a buyer, and I believe that my representation of that buyer is wildly critical and wildly helpful and streamlines and simplifies that process, because remember what a consumer wants, what's not going to change in the business. People want this to be simpler. That I say there's an option that the seller pays for part of it and you pay for part of that because my fee for this service is X. And so if
Right.
your fee is 2% and the seller's offering 1%, well, in that case, buyer, you only have to pay 1%. The seller's going to pay 1, you're going to pay 1. If my fee is 4%, the seller offered 2, then you'll pay 2. So there's going to be an option for a buyer that the seller said, hey, we'll pay for it. The buyer says, hey, partial payment from seller and partial payment from buyer. Or the third option might be, in this case, the seller has not put any of that fee into the price of the home. Understand that. And that means the whole fee is on the buy side or the buyer to pay. And at that point, again, our fees have always been negotiable, and we will work with that buyer up front and perhaps even during the transaction to put that together for them. So I guess from my perspective, I think we're again getting really, really hung up over the few $1 billion that we've been looking at across the entire industry. And if someone says, hey, this should not be a $3 billion industry, it should be a $1 billion industry. Okay, but I already told you that the home services industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. So why are we not looking at what we can do to deliver a streamlined process for all of those services for the buyer and the seller and the homeowner, instead of worrying about what we can't control if the industry sort of gets compressed or the total available income in the industry gets compressed. So I worry not about that. Even being in the industry that I'm in, and I just focus on what I can control. It's my value proposition to a seller, my value proposition to a buyer, how I dialogue through that, and also what other opportunities am I looking for within the industry to deliver value to simplify the process.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that for me, I do worry about a lot of things I can't control, unfortunately. And I just go down this rabbit hole of saying, the interesting thing to me is that, the alleging that the fixing of commissions is an issue because of, the inflation of real estate values, whatever. It's so easy for me to go, this is all being brought by an industry which industry standard for litigation lawyers is around 40%. And like, it's just the industry standard. The individuals who are seeking these judgments are going to take an industry standard fee on this. When you think about um, your insurance rates have built into them a 10 to 13% compensation to the agent that manages your account. Like, the food you buy, if you go and get a $20 meal, the $20 meal includes about $1.50 worth of employment fees for the person that services your food. It's like we go down this rabbit hole of going, all right, cool. We're just going to all out attack on free enterprise in America. That is the interesting thing to me. To your point, I think it's important for us to look introspectively to say, um, am I prepared to discuss compensation as a buyer's agent? Because the reality is, I've been in this industry for 23 years. And for the most part, the standard response has been, I'm going to represent you, and the compensation generally comes from the purchase of the sale, paid through escrow on behalf, like through the seller's agent, from the seller to the seller's agent to me. So therefore, you don't have to worry about that. Well, if we move into a world to where, to your point, that compensation gets drastically reduced, and I believe in the services I offer, and I have to say a portion of my compensation will be coming from the listing agent who is getting it from the seller's agent, but there's this gap, and we need to discuss that gap, whether it's done through lending or whatever. I just think we're, all in all, I think the future is going to reward the educated. The future is going to reward the brave. The future is going to reward the full-time, all in, let's do this type of real estate professional, both on the listing side and the buy side. And to bring it back full circle, I think there's so much power in not, especially in 2024, operating in a vacuum. Like, if I find myself in a small room with small-minded people, kicking against the world, complaining against all the things that are happening, I enjoy being in really big rooms with really smart people and really broad and diverse. It's why we love being at Real. It's why we love being a partner at Place. We're not having to recreate the wheel. we're coming to you guys and going like, hey, what is everybody else doing? Like we're on masterminds and in rooms. And so if I could give any advice to the real estate professional out there, regardless of brokerage affiliation or anything, just to say, make sure you're getting in big rooms and not necessarily always rooms that you're paying to go to some, summit that's held by some real estate coach. It's not a bad idea, but make sure you're at least talking to other real estate professionals. Make sure you don't take advice solely from people whose entire job exists to complain and to woe is me, because to be honest, you're just gonna find yourself outside of an industry that can still, to your point, Chris, be a very rewarding and successful endeavor to trade your time for the type of money you can make in real estate or in insurance or in really any type of sales. um, it's a rewarding experience. But if you don't watch what information you intake, if you don't control the voices you listen to, you could find yourself in a really dark place really quick in 2024, which I think is scary.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, and that goes to the point of the power of partnership and the right partnership. Um, it's interesting, like, obviously recent passing of Charlie Munger, and talk about the power of partnership. And here's a guy, when you talk about what opportunities are there in the right industry with the right people. Charlie Munger didn't decide to be an investor until he was 41 years old. Like, he left the legal industry 41. 41 is
yeah,
when, like, he began his sort of next career of wealth
right.
building. But probably one of the most fascinating things is when Warren Buffett was talking to Charlie Munger, and he said, I've never had a phone call with Charlie without learning something. So again, ask yourself, like, am I learning something from my partners? Like, so much of being part of a team like yours is, hey, are my leaders teaching me? Am I learning something? Am I thinking differently? Am I being challenged? But he said, you know, I've never had a phone call with Charlie, right, without learning something. And while he makes me think, he also makes me laugh. And I think that we spend so much time building our businesses, and we spend time on work, that not being alone is worth something. Like, doing
100%.
doing awesome things with awesome human beings, like, it's it's what being human is all about. And so for me, like, I don't put a value on that. Like, when people sort of question value, again, like, that begins to tell me that you may not be 100% ready for partnership because you don't value, right? Like, that would be me telling you, like, I don't value the time that we're going to spend together. But things that you said today, questions that you asked me today, will cause me to go home and think, I really need to think about that even a little bit more, because I may have had a response, but is that really, really what I believe? Should I think about it differently?
Right,
Should I
right.
should I be more should I be more worried or think more about what I don't control? Because maybe I could control what I say I don't control. Like, I think that's the incredible part of human interaction, and what you're doing here, like, by interviewing people and bringing that to your community, but also what you're building as a business, and what you have found within even the brokerage model that you choose as well. Like, hey, this is a community. I choose to build my community or build my house in this neighborhood or this community. Awesome. So just choose your communities wisely.
Yeah. Well, I love it, man. Taylor and I are learning more every day, every week. Our team really loves everything that is happening at Place. We value partnership. It's how we built everything we've built. And when we had the opportunity to get into business with Ben Kinney and Chris Suarez and Brian Gubernick and Via and all the amazing people that at Place, it was just a no-brainer for us, because we felt like um, it will be impossible for us to not win when we're teamed up with individuals like you. And so thanks for hopping on with us.
My pleasure.
Thanks for being awesome. Thanks for being a leader. Thanks for being a thought leader. And thanks for all you do, not just to help us, but to bring some perspective to an industry that I think is sorely lacking perspective. And I know that I, along with many others, appreciate what you bring. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I appreciate it. Appreciate your partnership, and appreciate what we do for our industry as well. It's an industry we both love, and I can tell just by talking to you how much you love it. So that's awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Yep. Anytime.